Hi, I'm Leanne Harris with Getting to Know Your Realtor. And today on our podcast and on this episode, we have Joe Liu coming at you live. Hey, Joe, how are you today?
Hey, Leanne. Good. How about you?
Good. You got your beeves in the background.
Yep.
I commented on that before we decided to start recording today. I'm like, where'd you get that picture? But I love it.
You've lost half your eyes already because of the background.
That's okay. They only listen in.
Yep.
I have 500 listeners on this podcast that have subscribed to it that just listen in. But if they're Duck fans, then we're sorry, because Joe Liu is.
It is what it is. Yeah.
Orange, right?
Yep.
So I have known you for a really long time. We have been in business together for 10 years this year. Isn't that crazy?
That's been fast. It
Maybe
feels
9.5, but I think it's closer to 10.
Round up.
Yeah. You do have a majority of your clients when you very first started that really did come from your fraternity at OSU. And there were a lot of friends from Corvallis because that's where you're from.
Yep.
And you built a business around your sphere for starters. And I think that that's huge and things that I want to talk about as we get going today on our podcast, because people are always thinking about, how do I want to market? How did you get to know your people? So
Sure.
Tell us your journey in real estate. How did you get into the real estate industry?
So it's semi-accident, I guess. Graduated OSU, got a degree in MIS. Tried to find a job back in 02, 03. Couldn't, so I got my post back in accounting. And then I got a job in the tech world, of course, after getting my accounting degree. Worked for a few companies, did well. I'm Chinese, so my mom always tells me I should have been a doctor, a lawyer, an astronaut, a billionaire, one of those four categories. And at some point, she was like, why don't you get your license and do real estate? Because at the time she was buying a bar or a restaurant almost every year. And so she was watching, this other guy get a huge check every time that they close a deal. And she was like, I know how to do everything. Just get your license. I'll throw your name on this paper and you can get paid. And I thought, sure, why not? That's literally how I got in. And, the first check came in and it was probably a quarter of what I make my entire year in a tech world. And so I thought, well, I'm licensed. I might as well just kind of do this part-time. I was only 25, 26 back then. So I wanted the beer money, basically, was what it was. And it was like, if I sell one home, I can drink all the beer I want all year for free. And so that was it.
It was table service in Vegas that you were buying.
It was table service in Vegas, fly in Hawaii every now and then, and just kind of a little bit of a side gig for the most part of it. And it got a little bit busier and busier. And I thought, maybe I'm in the wrong career. Maybe I should be a realtor full time. And then 08 hit and it was like, nope. I like my tech job right now and the security it provides. So I kind of stayed in there for a little bit longer. And as we recovered, things were great. My friends were all now 29, 30 years old and looking to buy their first home. And there's first time buyer programs, rates were coming down, houses were cheap. And so everyone started buying. And at that point it was sort of like, well, here's where I can just kind of take a risk here and say, I'm just going to do it full time. Yeah. And that was it. Never looked back.
Well, I think what's important for people to hear, and especially for your clients that are listening in on this, is that you have an accounting background. You are really good with numbers. I know that. I can testify to that piece of it, but it's very helpful when you're the fiduciary in the transaction, right? The second piece is that you came from the tech world. And I think what's super important is whether or not your clients are coming from your sphere or not, you have these other two pieces that really play into the real estate transaction. And we know, look, the real estate transaction has gotten more and more techy as the years have gone by. You and I, obviously starting in real estate somewhere around the same time, we've watched, these other tech companies come in and try to squeeze out the real estate agent, and honestly to the detriment of the client. And so here you are, you're still the fiduciary in the transaction, but you understand the tech side of it so that you can get your clients into houses when we have 0.08 months of inventory. You know how to navigate through that stuff. And then you also know how to make sure that the accounting is correct and that you're really protecting their greatest asset.
Definitely. And the tech side it's been crazy because real estate, even when I started doing it, I just thought, I can't believe how far behind real estate is.
Yeah.
And, Zillow was popping up back then.
I remember when
Uh,
you bought a Matterport, and we're going to talk about that. And I was like, no, do not buy that. And you're like, we're buying it.
yeah. And that, yeah, we'll get that for later on. But I remember when I started though, like we were faxing in offers. It was weird because I didn't even have a fax machine back then because it was just, I'm in a tech world where I'm helping FedEx, the Navy. We're doing all these crazy tech things with Oracle and everything else. And here someone's like, well, fax me over your offer. And I'm just like, what? I have to go to Kinko's? Like, how does this work? I still to this day have to go to Kinko's if I have to fax something over. But it was definitely a point where I was like, why doesn't real estate have all these things that everybody else has right now in whether it's, I mean, I don't know, medical field, but all the other fields had tech just busting and apps were coming out and everything was just so, iPhones were exploding. And real estate was kind of, I mean, it had a long way to go to catch up. And I
Yeah.
feel like today it's caught up a lot, but it still has a long way to go, I think, as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that if you want to be a great real estate agent, you need to understand the way that the real world is working, which is in tech, right? And I have a lot of people. I had a person this year who said, "I feel like real estate's getting too techy. I'm getting out." And I was like,
Really?
are you getting out of life or what are you doing? Like, I don't know what to tell you. I just feel like it's kind of going that direction. So, all right. So you get your license. Your mom is like, I'm going to sling a couple of restaurants and put your name on it and you're going to make the money. So you get into real estate and you've been at Keller Williams. You were at a small brokerage. I remember that. I remember
Yeah.
that you were at a small brokerage before you joined us.
Yep.
I gave you a sandwich and somehow you joined me and we decided to get together and do business together.
Yeah, I remember that. You interviewed me while I was eating a sandwich.
It's always so comfortable. Um, so, so you've kind of grown in the Keller Williams world, but what do you think are the three nuggets that you would give the audience today?
So it's been a good journey, an amazing journey, and I feel like every year I've been at Keller Williams, I've learned something new. Whether I've become a better leader, I've grown as a person, and I'll kind of give you what I struggled with in the last, I would say, 3 years or so, was figuring out kind of my why, because I think we all go through different stages in life, and I heard his podcast about 4 years ago that really hit me. And at the time, I didn't really know what to make of it because I had to kind of like listen to it. I've listened to it probably 40 times, I would say, in the last 40 years.
Mhm.
It's just one of those things where I've got, I'm just driving, I've got an hour drive, and I'm like, screw it, I need a little motivation. I want to pop it back on. And it's a podcast between Joshua Smith and Dan Locke, who Joshua Smith does GSD, Get
Yeah,
S Done. Yeah.
yeah.
And so Dan Locke
You
is,
can say it. You should have heard the interview with Lynn Holthusen. Trust me, it's okay. You can say the real name of the podcast.
I don't know, the audience is 13 or 35, so I think I'm going to keep it PG today.
Okay, good.
um, so he talks about, and it's Dan Locke who's talking about it. He sells high ticket items, and he got very deep into like life and just and everything. And I thought, this is perfect. But he talks about the 4 stages of life, and so I'll give this as my nugget because I feel like it might help someone out there, whether you're in real estate or not. I think it helps. So stage number one is survival. Whether you're just getting out of college,
Yeah.
you're paying the bills, you're struggling though, right? You're just trying to survive. It could be you're working 2 jobs, everyone's been there, everyone's eating the ramen and just kind of like,
The mac and
next
cheese with
year, like,
water.
yeah, and you kind of have that, maybe your why is to just make a few more bucks, right? And it's okay. But then you kind of get to that point in life where, your job is a little better, maybe you get promotions, and now you have security. You're making some money, roof over the head, you're paying the bills, everything's great. But some people feel like this is fine, and some people feel like something's missing, and they want to kind of move up to the next stage. And that's kind of the success part, right? Where we grind it out, we build a big business. We have everything we want and need, essentially. So great house, great car, vacations, we can eat out. There's no looking at the budget. If you're going to have dinner tonight at some restaurant, it's just sort of, you just do it. And that varies, right? Because you can make in $50,000 a year and have success, or you can maybe making $5 billion a year, like an Elon Musk, or I mean, he's making more than that, I think, right now. But I mean, and so that level is so different. And here's a part that hit me, is because he said many people are stuck in success and they're unhappy. And it was sort of this point in time where I was, your goals get crazier and crazier. I think they get bigger and bigger. Nothing wrong with that.
I agree.
But at some point, though, I wasn't any happier hitting a higher goal than I was hitting the first goal the first time. Because the first time you hit it, it's like, I didn't think I could do it. And after that, once you know you can do it, it's almost like you just keep going up. And he says it's ego driven in some sense, to where no longer do you have to go that route. But if you do it, it's almost ego driven. And so he said, and this is the part that hit me, was when I die one day, and I'm laying there in my casket, and somebody comes up and says, Joe Liu, that guy made a lot of money. And it's sort of like, do I want my life just to be that? Or do I want the latter, which is stage 4, he says, significance. And we talk about it all the time. It's your legacy, When they walk up to you, they say, Joe Liu, that guy changed my effing life.
Yeah.
That's what most people strive for. That's why I think you see the Mark Cubans and the guys in Shark Tank who have billions of dollars, who just want, like, they can just go retire on a beach. I think Mark Cuban said it too. It's like, I just want to make $1 billion. So at 35, I'm on a beach every day, and that's all I do. Yeah. But I think that was his original why, was to get to that $1 billion. Once he got there, he kind of had to sort of define himself and say, look, I don't want to say bored, but I feel like I can give back so much more. And significance is more or less just making the world a slightly better place.
Yeah.
And so what really hit me was, that's still not what I wanted, though. So when I die and I'm laying there in my coffin, and that one person comes up to me, that one person has to be my daughter. And she has to be the one to say, Dad, you changed my effing life, and I love you. That's the only person who I would sacrifice everything for to get to this why. Yeah. Because if I had $1 billion, let's say my why was 100 houses and a yacht. Like, if I had $1 billion, my why is done. But if I had $1 billion, my why currently is still not done, because I still want my daughter to basically be the one who feels like I changed her life, and not necessarily through money means, because Bruce Lee had this quote. It hit me as well. I heard recently, instead of buying your children all the things you never had, you should teach them all the things you were never taught. And so I was like, damn, that's deep. That's super deep, because I watch these shows on Netflix. We all have. It's COVID time, guys. Bling Empire,
internet.
Watch the entire internet, and you watch these rich kids of LA and everything, where the dad's some billionaire and she's got 50 mil trust fund, and her life is shopping, and her battles are getting the newest of a new couture, or I don't even know how to say all those names. I mean,
We'll check in with Amy on that.
I have to Google this, okay, guys? But you know what I mean? Like, it's like she has the red one, but the orange one you can only get in Paris. She takes a private flight to Paris to buy the orange one, and like, her life is complete. But it's like,
I know that the reason why you know these things too, just a little background, because I do think this is funny, because this is so good. This is rich. Like, you have such good information. But I know Amy makes you watch The Bachelor. You are a great husband too.
Happy. That's I'm watching. I'm not absorbing. There's nothing to absorb there. It's
okay.
That it's and by the way, I'm like backseat driving, talking smack the whole time. So That's the only reason why I enjoy that show.
It
In
does
some
make me
sense.
happy that when you tell me the stories of your backseat driving and talking smack. But okay, I digress. I just had to let the audience know that Amy does have a fabulous husband, and that the only reason why you know this is because of Amy, who's equally amazing. But anyway, go on.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was my whole thing. Knowing my why to the very core. I know there's finding your why with Simon Sinek, which I tried going through. I tried going through all the activities in there. I got something that was very fortune cookie like, like this is my drivers, but then it just didn't. I mean, I can say it out loud, but it didn't make me feel anything.
Yeah.
Um, until I realized what my real why was, because everyone says, "Oh, it's my family. Like my family's my why." And I always like, okay, but why? Like, why is it your family? Like, what is it in there? And I think it helps me because now that I know my why, I need to do my why.
Yeah.
And so it's not just, well, I know it's my daughter now, I'm just going to keep working my butt off and
Yeah.
everything else. It's I need to provide for her everything as far as knowledge wise, anything I can give her, whether it's what I went through in high school, what I went through growing up, what I went through, all my failures, all my
Yeah.
um, issues, because I think kids always think their parents are perfect as they grow up, and they realize that there's holes there as they get older, and maybe that's why they're so mean to you when they're teenagers. I don't know. Um, but I mean, I'm going to hold on to it until she realizes that.
I'll coach you when you get to that place,
Thank
because
you.
I gotta
Yes.
tell you, it's a rough place. But you've been through that with me. I mean, with us being together last 10 years, you watched me with
Yeah.
two of my teenagers. One was already at college, but yes. So I will make sure to be there and be your friend during those times, because they are not fun. Sometimes they are. But.
And Mia's already pretty sassy as she is, so I'm very worried.
No.
I think she's going to be much more cunning than I was when I was young, and she's going to own me, I think, in some weird way. Like she's
I
going to
like
want a
it.
Lamborghini but settle for that new BMW, and I'd be like, okay, we settled for the BMW, but like I don't know.
She is gonna own you. She
Yeah.
is gonna own you. I
So
love it.
the other big thing for me figuring out my why was that it helped me with saying no to things now, because the time with her is precious. I know that. And I think sometimes we get caught up with other things where we know that we don't have to go golfing with the lenders or the, whatever. And
Yeah.
I don't like golfing anyways. I mean,
Uh,
y'all love golfing. It's cool, but it's painful for me. So I say no to a lot more things than I used to, because now it's like, no, I'm just going to be home and, put
Yeah.
me to sleep, or we're going to build a house with these little magnet blocks. And that gives me greater satisfaction. So,
That's awesome.
yeah.
It definitely changes you when you become a parent, for sure. And I think that, your why is constantly evolving as you go through. But I think once you become a parent, they are the center of everything else that you're doing, for
Yeah.
sure.
And
Any
wondering, my daughter's only 2.5. So if you're like, your daughter can't get old, because I think it changes as time goes on, right? So
There's something new that happens every year, that's for sure.
yeah.
Are there any other nuggets that you want to leave anybody with?
Yeah. This is something that hit me pretty hard. I mean, we're the COVID years right now, right? So when people go to college, they call it the freshman 15, where you gain 15 pounds your first year in college. And so I call it the COVID-19 years,
God.
because I mean, I'm not judging anybody. If you say fit, congratulations, you're amazing. But I mean, I was eating pizzas at 9 o'clock at night. I was eating. We were watching the Bachelor reruns, obviously, and chips and everything bad you can think of, because no longer were we socializing. It was just my wife and I watching these Netflix shows late at night, and food naturally became kind of that evil source, right? In November, though, I was tired a lot. It was weird. It was like I'd wake up with headaches. I thought I had COVID, so I got tested, and then in December I tested again because it didn't go away. Both times negative, and they finally ran a blood panel on me, and it was high cholesterol. And even
Wow.
that, they don't even know if. And I'm not. Everyone knows me. I'm a pretty skinny guy. I mean, I'm thin, but I think I'm more like skinny fat, where like deep down, I'm actually huge. Um, so all of my arteries are just clogging up. And with COVID though, it's, we're not going to the gym anymore. We're not having our spinning classes. We bought a Peloton, which if anyone has had one, it's pretty amazing, honestly, to have that gym in your house now. And I went back on keto recently. So I'm just, and I feel way better. It's just changing your diet has helped me. But the issue was that I was sluggish. Like, I'd come home after they're doing some showings or listing appointments, whatever it is, and I'd have to like lay down for an hour just to like rebalance myself,
Yeah.
then play with my daughter for a little bit, then lay back down. And it was sort of like something's wrong and I need to figure out what it is. And so, I we're in a weird industry where right now with COVID, you don't have as many options out there. It's Taco Bell, it's McDonald's, those are all open, but to sit in a restaurant, which I think you can do now, but before you couldn't really,
Right.
you couldn't get like a good clean meal.
Right.
It was purely just fast food, and the market has gotten so hot that we're always running around. We're jumping from one to another, and so we just grab a Big Mac and we just go. And so, and we're sitting the whole time too. So it's like we're sitting, we're showing a house, we're sitting, we're showing a house, we're driving, So it wasn't the healthiest lifestyle, and so I had to change that. So if anyone's out there feeling like you're sluggish at all, like look into that, because keto, some sort of diet may
Yeah.
help you kind of
I
just
think
get
people are
back.
depressed too. I mean, that
Yeah.
I have my nonprofit, Lifeline for Hope, and suicide rates have gone through the roof. And, thank God for donors that have jumped onto Lifeline for Hope and thrown in tons of money. I mean, we had one of the biggest donations come out of our office. It was $17,000 donation from a single person that
Well,
jumped in and raised the money for it. And we've needed that this year because you're a really social guy. And I think that in real estate, you have to be somewhat social. I'm a little bit less social than you for sure. And this is way taking my energy down. And of course, I think that people look towards food because it's a life source, right? So we always look towards food, clothing, shelter, sense of community. And when you have had your sense of community taken away, we
yeah.
don't know if shelter is going to happen because the housing market's so crazy. So people are having to move and they don't know if they're going to have a house, and that franticness starts happening. We look towards food because it is that life source, right?
Yep.
And so I think that you're so right on that there's like the junk food era that we've all been in. I've seen a lot of people gain quite a bit of weight through this, but you're right. It's like push back into your community though, however that looks, because that'll also help you to get out of that. So it sounds like if anybody's out there struggling, they should call you, talk to you about your keto diet.
Yeah. Call them up. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy because like so this is my fifth time I think on keto, right?
Yeah.
And the first few times was like sausage, bacon, every
Yeah.
fatty thing you can ever think of is like on a table. And I realized I was talking to my buddy who's like a nutritionist, and he was like, "Look, you can go that route, but you kind of doing it wrong in a way, because you
Right.
should be doing more like avocados, like nuts, like there's healthier fats. It shouldn't be like, a grease pan you're drinking out of, pretty
Right.
much. And then you need to have 200 grams of fats to 100 grams of basically protein mixed with a tiny bit of carbs." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm doing all that." He's like, "Are you tracking it?" I'm just like, "Oh god, it's like real estate." Um,
Ugh.
Yeah, I'm kind of like. He's like, "Well, download this app." It was like a my Fitness Pal or something, I don't know whatever it was. But anyways, he put all our food in there, and it's got a little scanner on there. It scans the labels,
Yes,
and
it's so good.
it's crazy. And believe it or not, people are like, "Oh, I'm always hungry when I'm on keto." I'm like, no, try eating 200 grams of fat and just see if you want to throw up, because you
Yeah,
feel so full. It's like
it's
your
true.
body's just like, ugh. And then you get the keto headache, which honestly felt exactly the same as when I didn't feel well anyway. So I was like, this is normal now. They call it keto flu.
Yeah.
Got through that, and then it was just sort of like no big deal. But anyways, Costco has so much more keto items now than ever
That's
before.
awesome.
Before it was just like, you get the salad and eggs and whatever there, cheese.
Yeah.
But now it's like their aisles are like lined with keto stuff. And just be careful, because not all it says keto sometimes, but it's not really keto.
A little chunky.
It's like, oh, look at these sugary peanuts
Yeah.
with coconut and everything. I'm like, oh, that's amazing. And you look at the back of the label, it's like 3 grams net. I'm like, per what, like 2 pieces of like little pebbles? Like there's
Yeah.
no freaking way that's keto. So anyways, just watch out for the mislabels.
I like it.
But Google's your friend. There's a lot of YouTube people who are doing keto that have tricks and everything else, and it's gotten easier. So yeah.
Nice. Okay. Any other nuggets?
I can go on forever here if you want me to, but
That's it. I mean, we could go into, what would your book be if you want to go to that one?
I'll give you one more nugget because I mean I'm sure that there's younger people getting into real estate who want to know, like, they're
Yes.
probably just fine on the health part, and their why is maybe more in the survival part. So learning has to be the biggest part.
Yes.
And 10-15 years ago, we didn't have all these podcasts, like the one that you're doing, the one that GSD has, like all of that, and there's a lot of them. And it's crazy how much free information there is now versus before, where you had to pay to be, $1,000 to join some boot camp or whatever it is, and you still can't do that stuff. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that, but you can now almost like sample it by going through the podcast, because everyone has podcasts now, and you can learn. It doesn't have to be just real estate though. You can learn about just life, how to be a better leader, how to be a better husband, companion, spouse, whatever it is, how to be better in fitness. Learn to flip properties. And I think the more knowledge you absorb, the better, sort of more rounded you become. I would say
it's true. And I'll just comment on that really quick. I was, my radio in my car had been changed yesterday to a sports station because the Beads were playing a basketball game. So
yes.
I had sports going on in the car, and I got in the car this morning and they were talking and they said, get ready, because the amount of people that have had COVID and the amount of people that have had their vaccinations in Oregon, we are flipping now. So it has to start coming down, right? Yeah. But because of the news, fear mongering still, and like, oh, there's, it's mutating. There's been 4 cases in the world. And I really, really, really do not want to downplay, because we have lost some people in families that are our agents here. And so I am by no means downplaying COVID. I'm saying, look at it like a science, look at it like a math, and do your very best to stay protected. But I think that it's super important to stay extremely well-versed in a lot of different things. So if you don't listen to a conservative radio station, listen to it anyway, figure it out. Listen to a podcast that might not be something that you would normally listen to, because I think what we do is we get into a box and we just live in it. And it's like, but get out of that piece of it and really learn. And I say that to other real estate agents too, because I think that they stay in their little box of learning, or they believe that they are going to do real estate their HGTV way, and they don't realize that there are many other ways that they should be doing. But anyway, go on.
No, totally.
Off my soapbox.
And it doesn't matter if the other part though, with that, the whole news part is like, I'm selective on everything that I kind of read, because like the Oregonian sells headlines. If the headline was boring, you're not going to click it. So I'm not really big on Facebook or Instagram like that. I need to be bigger on Instagram for sure. I've watched these kids kill it on Instagram. Like, you can learn a lot from these young adults who are doing IG at a high level, where I'm just like my whole metaphor thing seems like child's play now, watching these new guys do stuff. I'm just like, yeah, I officially feel old. But it's okay, because like I'm learning from them, and I'm like, that's like there was no book for that. They just went out and did it. And I always say, take a risk, because if you aren't the first one, then you're kind of the last one, right? So it's one of those things. But back to learning that, like you can learn a lot from a lot of, and look for guys who actually do it, because I've been following stocks a lot now, and you go on the YouTube channels, and it's sort of this rabbit hole, right? Where some guys like, oh, three penny stocks that'll make you $1 million, and it's like, this looks like the biggest load of what, because I'll follow them and I'll just watch 2 weeks later and see, is it at whatever number it should have been at, and it's usually never there. So it's or they're posting it thereafter, like it's already shot up 100% in 2 days, but the video came out literally the 2 days after it shot up. So it's like there's a lot of clickbait stuff out there. So just look for good information, dig into it. I always say save it because like the MRA, which is the Millionaire Real Estate book, did not apply to me when I was selling 4 houses. Like it made sense. It was direction,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like I read through. It was like, oh my God, I'm going to put all these things into play tomorrow. Like I'm just trying to figure out how to freaking get my MLS back then. So, but after we started building a team and everything else, this book became like the Bible.
Right.
So sometimes, like that GSE podcast I listened to, it didn't apply to me until after Mia was born. Even then, I didn't really see it. It was one of those just driving, all of a sudden it just hit me where I was like, wait, the dots started all connecting again. And it was
Yeah.
like, right now, this is where it hits me. And in 10 years from now, it could hit me differently as well. I can see it differently again.
Of
And
course.
I think it's okay for your why change, because I don't think anybody has something set in stone where it's like, this is it, and I'm just going to keep doing it. It
Yeah.
can change whenever you want it to change. So I know you're going to ask me, what book would I write?
Yeah. Well, if you were going to write a book, what would it be about?
So I will write a book for sure. And this year's been kind of a crazy year because I too have had friends and colleagues, close people to them who have passed due to COVID. And it's one of those things where, everyone thinks originally it was like one of those only if you're old enough would you have problems. It's like,
Right.
no, there's people in their 30s who had it and didn't
Right.
come out from it. So it's sad, and I'm 40 this year. So I'm definitely above a threshold, and this
Yeah.
whole cholesterol thing and everything else is kind of like it's hitting me where it's like, tomorrow's not guaranteed. So if I lived every year like tomorrow's not guaranteed, then, and my why is my daughter, then I need to write a book for her, sort of a manual per se.
Yeah.
This is the thing that I never got to ask my grandparents, because I was only a teenager when they passed away. But we've had plenty of time where I could ask them, tell me about your life, tell me about
Yeah.
what it was like traveling from China over here. What did your parents do? What did your grandparents do? What was that like back then? And all that history is kind of lost. I feel like I asked my dad that question. He was just like, I don't know, ask your cousin, blah blah blah. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
come on, man, like
Thank
you don't
God
know
for
this stuff.
the internet started tracking all of us, right? So at least we have somewhat of our stories out there, but it's true.
Yeah.
And the stories change generationally. So
Yeah.
like there's the old wives' tales, of like what our grandparents actually did. And I'm like, but I don't know if that was real because we don't have any
Yeah.
documentation of it.
Yeah, it's crazy because like we've got Mia documented on the internet for her entire life going forward, pretty much, right? Myself only maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago.
Yeah.
Kids will never remember that we used to have to click a button, develop this film roll at Rite Aid or
Right.
Costco, and wait like a week. Yeah, and then some lady steals your photos, and you're like, come on, that was my only roll. And that was it. Like you lost your entire roll.
Yeah.
So now it's like, it's all in the cloud, and it's forever. And it's kind of crazy, but it's kind of scary as well because with AI and everything else, like we're literally documented the whole way through. So they may be able to predict what cereal you like to eat or what foods you want to eat later on. And so I don't know. It's creepy. It's like every Black Mirror episode ever made is going to become fruition. I hope not, but that's kind of the world we live in. And so for me, though, I think maybe one day she'll want to know about a little bit of, as far back as we can get to our past.
Yeah.
And I can give her that because it's if my parents aren't here or I'm not here tomorrow due to COVID or something, then she loses all that, right? So I want to write that for her, and I want to write something about basically, all of my failures. Documented them out.
I'm going to really quick tell you that our lights have flickered on 4 times. As you know, we've had crazy weather, and then half of Portland's been out of electricity. My electricity was out. It's insane. I have agents that haven't had electricity, and it's flickered on 4 or 5 times. So if I lose you, we might have to say goodbye to our audience later. But let's go to the very last piece. So you've got book for your daughter. Any final wrap-up thought on that? Does it have a name?
I don't know. Lutopia, Lou Dynasty? I have no idea.
Yes, Lutopia.
Liu Dynasty will be the book's name.
Oh my God, I
and
love
only
it.
she can read it. And there'll be a duck on the cover. It'll be a beaver or something.
Right, but I want a chapter in there. I want to
Okay,
have a
you got
chapter in there.
Totally.
Mia, I was there and gave you your first The Future is Female
Yes.
onesie. All right. You have a question for me?
Yes, I do.
Okay. What do you have for me?
If you had to wear a different color other than black for the whole week, what would it be?
White. Wait, is that not a color? That's just another negative? I don't know. You know what color freaks me out so bad? It's because I can't make decisions. I can't make this many decisions during a week. So I just wear the same thing all the time. A
You can pick orange if you want.
I was going to
fine.
say orange. Actually, I really like orange. It's a great color, but you know, my Harris Consulting is green. And it's not because I'm a Duck fan. It's because it's the color of success and money. And so I like green as well. So maybe orange. I'll say orange just because
Perfect.
it's a happy color.
Because I'm on.
That's right. That's right. Well, thanks for sharing your insight today. That was really good. I took notes, actually. I was like, oh, yeah, I want to write that down because I have some to-dos afterwards for podcast downloads. So thanks for joining us today on Getting to Know Your Realtor. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thanks for joining us today on Getting to Know Your Realtor. This episode was brought to you by Lifeline for Hope. Be sure to catch us on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Stitcher, and be sure to subscribe. Thanks so much again for joining us today. Have a great day.